Welcome once again to this very interesting episode tonight. We are going to be handling a very pertinent topic for tonight. We are handling our Queen, the Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who has reigned for 70 years and died on the 8th of this month, September 2022. Welcome to this show. My name is Kato Mukasa, a Ugandan lawyer. Here to do the job with my sister, Linda Tilly, who is based in South Africa. My team in the background, Dennis in Uganda, Abraham in South Africa, Logan in South Africa, Kabeko Brian in Kenya. Thank you for a good job you are doing, and we shall continue taking Mother Africa forward, and we believe that these kind of shows are going to be the way forward for Africa. My name is Kato Mukasa, as I said, a human rights lawyer and activist, but also an author of several works. Today, we're making an assessment of the legacy of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and we're looking at the impact of the British monarchy on Africa. We are going to use 1 hour. It is 14 minutes past 7 o'clock in the UK, and we shall be using 1 hour on the dot, and then be able to see and know and learn and unlearn a few things about the Queen, but also the legacy, but also looking at Africa, how her reign has affected Africa, whether positively or negatively. We are going to be learning this. My brother in the studio, Dennis and Brian, will be running some of the adverts of the books I've written, and please, you may be seeing the books on Amazon. When you put in my name, Kato Mukasa, you'll be seeing lots of work I have written on Africa. And my latest book is Mama Africa, Tell Your Story. So please, viewers, go to Amazon. If you want to support this work and you want to support the work we do, go to my Amazon, look for Kato Mukasa, and look for the works I have written, especially on Africa, and then learn more. My latest book is Mama Africa, Tell Your Story, which is a poetic conversation about Africa. It talks about the history of Africa, which is hidden. And my sister, Linda Tilly, wrote a very beautiful introduction and preface for the book. The other book is called Stolen Legitimacy, which talks about the dictatorship in Uganda and talks about the leader or the rulership of dictator Yoweri Museveni, who is planning to install his son, his lunatic son, Major General, whatever his title is, Kainerugaba. So that book, Stolen Legitimacy, briefly talks about Uganda, how once a beautiful country, once a wealthy country, once a country with successful, happy people, became a failed state under a 40-year-old dictatorship by Museveni. So that book, Stolen Legitimacy, is about Uganda, but also about a country transiting from a banana republic into a failed state. There are other books of interest, such as The God Business, which criticizes mainly in Africa, and we'll be seeing the impact of religion and how it has affected the works of people in Africa. So that's my beautiful sister, Linda, there. Welcome, Linda.
Hi, Kato. Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Welcome, Linda. That's Linda. Linda is on set, and she's going to be She's always my co-host. We do this thing together. We began this program together. We started this campaign together with Linda and Dennis and Logan and Brian and Abraham. So Linda is not only my co-host, but is my able speaker. What I can't speak, Linda can speak it. So today, whatever I refer to speak, Linda is going to speak it boldly, without fear of
I do talk a lot. I do talk a lot, so I can do that.
So, yeah.
You're laughing, you're not right.
No, Linda is well equipped. Don't even undermine yourself. Me, I know you. I know your ability. I know how good you are. And I know I'm covered because you speak my mind 100%. So, Stolen Legitimacy is one of the books, but there is a God Business and the Death of Reason in Africa. It's a very interesting book about Africa. You will see why some of us are not religious, why some of us chose humanism, and why Africa is poor, especially because we have foreign ideologies which do not allow people to think critically. Nigeria, people are killing themselves over foreign religions. There is that book, The Village Thief is a Cannibal, a poetic conversation about Africa and how bad leaders have turned Africa into a cannibal center. People are killed, people are imprisoned. In Uganda, many people are in prison. An Infidel, Song of an Infidel, is a poetic conversation about secularism, about people who don't believe in all these gods. And when I talk about gods, including the African traditional gods, how they have ruined Africa. So buy that book, and you are supporting the work we are doing here, because this is a TV where we need money to run it. That book is From Mental Slavery to Freedom, is a personal memoir. It's a book about my life. When you want to understand where some of us have passed in Africa, how hard it has been for me, that is your book. A person Linda understands Africa. That's why I'm proud of Linda, because she's born in Africa. She knows my story. Her story is my story. So, Stolen Legitimacy, I talked about it. It's a book about Uganda and about a 40-year-old dictatorship. People think Museveni has been a leader for 36 years. No, Museveni has been a leader for over 50 years in Uganda. Because he became a leader before he became a president, he was a minister. So Museveni has been a dictator for over 50 years in Uganda. And we need to talk about it and know that Uganda is in bad shape because of Museveni and his policies and the Musevenis. Another book, please, Dennis, you can run the books very fast. Because I Love the Land, this land is a poetic book, also about Africa, but the poem, Because I Love This Land, is about Uganda, and it's about Museveni and his dictatorship. Modern Humanism is other book I've written, which is about humanism, but in a modern way. And in that book, I argue that humanism must move from conference halls. Humanism must be hands-on. Humanism must be grassroots based. That book, Modern Humanism, is so important. The other book is Humanism in Uganda, which is a story about how humanism entered Uganda, not entered, how organized humanism was begun in Uganda, because we are humanists. People in Africa had Ubuntu before the coming of the thieves and the colonialists. People in Africa had Ubuntu. They were people who loved one another. They were people who traded in peace. So humanism, which is an equivalent of Ubuntu, I am because you are, was part of Africa. So that book, Humanism in Uganda, is about humanism and the history of organizing humanism in Uganda. Mama Africa, a book which tells the story of Africa in a poetic conversation, the entire Africa. That book is important. And that book and many other books you have seen there have been designed. The cover has been designed by Dennis Bongole, and have been designed by Joanita Zawede. I have a team of workers. We do together good work. And actually, we're going to be doing a book with Linda. Very, very soon, we shall be having a publication with my sister there, Linda. You'll be seeing it on a number of issues. We shall be writing together very, very soon. So we are starting right away, Linda. Welcome, Linda, my sister. Welcome on the show.
Thank you, Kato.
Yeah, we are going to be handling a very interesting topic.
Yes, it's been very...
About,
yes.
The Queen. Yes. And Linda, without further ado, I'm going to invite you and we start. We are making an assessment of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and the impact of the British monarchy in Africa. It's a very big topic, Linda. So welcome on board, Linda, and the floor is yours now.
Thanks, Kato. Yeah, you're right. It is a huge, huge topic for us to tackle. And also just in the one show, it would be interesting to have a few more continuations of the show with more guest speakers from other countries on it. Because we are in the state that we are in today as a continent because of the time that we were under brutal colonial rule. I don't like the fact that people refer to it as colonialism. It romanticizes it. We hear all about the white mischief days, the sunsets, the safaris, and the lifestyle of the British white people on our continent. But if you actually look at what it introduced here and the huge amounts of people killed in the most horrific, cowardly ways, it was a genocide of our people. And if you look at the definition of terrorism in any dictionary today, even the FBI's depiction of terrorism, what it entails, you can relate it back to absolutely everything that was done to Africa by the UK. So it was colonial terrorism. And I think that we need to start calling it that, what it is, because too much is hidden, and we give nice names for awful things, and we need to actually start owning up to what they are, and to things that we as African people have done as well. But I think that people are very split over the death of the Queen. We've seen a lot of people who are very aware of what's going on in Africa today, who have been very very sad about her death. Now, I just want to say that the death of any person is very sad, and even if it's a very evil person, it doesn't mean that we can be disrespectful about them, because they are still human beings who have families who love them despite what we think of them, and they are obviously to us something else than they are as the Queen was on her role as grandmother, mother, daughter, aunt, and all that throughout her lifetime. But I just think that I think it's absolutely disgusting that our African presidents are like putting South Africa as well as going into some kind of a mourning where the flags fly at half-mast and everyone, mourns for four, just like when racist supremacist de Klerk died last year in South Africa. And all the Black African people in South Africa were crying and mourning, most of them along with it. And I just see that happening in Africa now with the Queen's death. And it's the same thing, if I could explain it, is if we asked the UK to mourn the death of someone like Adolf Hitler or Osama bin Laden or something, and asked, would they be hanging their flags half-mast and celebrating the death and commemorating the lives of people like that? And that's very similar to us in Africa. I know that the Queen is seen as this dear little old grey-haired lady, and she was always very hands-off. But make no mistake, nothing was ever done on our continent without her full knowledge and consent. And we all make horrible mistakes in life, and people do have a chance to redeem themselves, yes. She ruled for 70 years, and she has never made up for the devastation on our continent or owned up to the full atrocities that were committed here under her rule. And even small things that she could have done if she didn't want to make the UK's actual truth about what happened here known, like returning our artifacts. That could have been done, I feel, just as an extension to us. The thing is, we as African people aren't vindictive. We're not going to go over to the UK and demand every single thing back and want death and destruction. We just want our continent back. We just want the truth of our history told, and we just want the lies to be erased. I don't think that nothing can ever make up for what the UK has done to this continent. The damage has been irreparably deep. It has devastated our people. And it still does today as we live in that legacy, and the UK is still very involved on our continent. And it's just heartbreaking to see that so many of our own people can't even see this for themselves. But then again, it's because of the history, the biased history that is taught in all our schools across Africa, which are still based on the Pearson International Education System at the end of the day. So it's very difficult. And then, of course, we have the religion, the Christian religion, which was introduced, well, it was enforced specifically through the colonial era, the colonial terrorism, because most, if not all, the people that we hear were Christians, and Black people were educated in Black mission schools, church schools, substandard schools out on farms and things. White children, like myself, we were only allowed to go to the schools in the exclusive white suburbs. And we were taught a different version of education to Black African people. You know, we were taught, I only discovered afterwards when I studied the system, it's a very controlled bias system with a lot of subliminal messaging and brainwashing in it to raise the white race up to be the leaders and the managers and the bosses. And on the other hand, it is created to oppress the Black people and to raise them to be laborers and not as literate in that as white people, and to basically be servants to the white race. And that is still in our schools today. I was horrified when during lockdown, well, I'm not in my home country, I'm in South Africa, and my children, my son was asked to bring all his books home during lockdown. We had to educate our children ourselves. And I was horrified when I was teaching him history, that I saw the same system that I had been taught on. I could not believe it. And then I started really going into that, and with lots of time on our hands during lockdown. I made it my point of investigating, and I've traced it all back. And then I looked at all the other countries that have been colonized by the UK to this day, all have a part of that system, or the whole system still in the education system. It doesn't matter if it says on the cover, New CAPS curriculum, South African written with all the African names and surnames and all the African things that have been brought into it to make it look like so much in Africa. I believe that all our independences were a complete sham. And I believe that it's been repackaged differently. We think we're free and we think that we're independent, but actually we're not. We also see there's so much infighting going on in the groups at the moment, because people, there's a different reaction, mixed reaction from people. A lot of people say, well, it's our fault we got ourselves into this situation because we never did what we should have at the time or whatever. And I see a lot of Black people being anti-Black themselves and saying our Black brothers are stupid and they this and that and all the rest of it. The fact of the matter is, a person's moral standing how they are, has got absolutely nothing to do with their race, their religion, their tribe, or their country. It's to do with how that person is inside their heart. And I think if anything we can learn out of this is that people seem to be horrified when they discover how our Black presidents were sold out during our independence and thereafter. They are absolutely horrified that our Black people sold their own people to slavery. And there were white people in Africa at the time who were also sold into slavery by their own white people. And I think that this is because we have it very much brainwashed into our heads our whole life, is this thing about race. And I know for a fact that that's what it is, because I raised my children in East Africa, in Tanzania, where we were completely in the minority as whites. And I didn't bring my children up with any definition of color at all. And I never ever, because I wasn't like that myself, and I wasn't surrounded by white racists, thank goodness. When they eventually had to come to school in South Africa, I will never forget the horror that my daughter had when she first came home from school one day, because people were describing friends with a color in front of them, like my Black Susan or whatever. She could not understand why they were using a color to describe a person, which then made me see that education is people. Racism is being passed on from one generation to the next. It's like a genetic disease, like cancer, and it's eating away at the fabric of our society. And there's no cure that I can see. I mean, I come back to South Africa now after many, many years away of living in East Africa, which was wonderful because I was just living like a normal person there. There was no issue with race or with any of these awful things that I see happening here now in South Africa, and I see happening on our continent. And it just made me realize it really is when there are people my age with children whose children have grown up completely racist, whereas my children haven't. It's proof that it's all to do with what they've been taught. And the schools are so racially biased. It's absolutely shocking, institutionalized racism. So what I'm just trying to say is that there's a time that's going to come where Black people in Africa have to realize that we all have to stand together. It doesn't matter who we are. At the end of the day, it's the good people against the bad people. You have to accept the fact that your Black presidents, many of them, are brutal dictators who have been cutting deals with the West for years and years since our independences, and have always known what was going on. And it's not a reflection on the Black race, just like things, well, I have to say most of the damage in this whole world has been done by my race, the white race. So we have to accept the fact and move on that I'm talking about a lot of infighting in Africa between Black groups, like I see now in South Africa, against all the other people, Black Africans of other countries. There's extreme xenophobia here. We need to start looking past that and realizing that it's not a tribe that's bad, or a religion that's bad, or a race that's bad. It's people within those different categories that are bad. And we have to start working together. I can't say, as a godless person, I'm not going to work with Christians or Muslims or Hindus. I can't do that. And no matter what their beliefs are, I've got to look past that and look at them as people. And that's what we need to start doing, because we need to unite Africa. And how on earth are we going to do this if we can't even unite ourselves in our own countries and our own tribal issues that we have? This is just such a huge topic. Now, I was thinking, Kata, today, of course, I'm going to be talking tonight about a small portion of what's happened in Nigeria. It's a country that I'm extremely passionate about. It's a country that is very badly misrepresented worldwide. The Nigerian people are very, very badly shone in a very bad light across Africa and the world. They are feared, and they are made out to be all sorts when they are the exact opposite. And a couple of years ago, I came to realize that this is a manufactured image that has been propagated and put out there by the media about the Nigerian people in general. This is also why the rest of Africa are a bit hands-off when it comes to the Nigerians, because they are feared. And we are taught that they are all drug dealers, terrorists, or thieves. And of course, if you do have Nigerians committing those crimes in any of our countries, it's highlighted. We've got bad people in all of our countries. We can't judge a whole country just on one group of people. And I think I said last week, what has been really wonderful for me is seeing how Uganda and Nigeria youth are uniting and talking together now on the groups and are supporting each other and getting involved and learning about each other's countries. It's just so heartwarming for me to see two different countries from opposite sides of Africa that have never really connected together. And the Ugandans are very soft, gentle people, loving, warm people, despite all the horrors they've been through. The Nigerians are feisty warrior fighters, and they'll tell you exactly how it is, and always know, and they are. So you could see how the personalities could be a little bit abrasive, but it's just amazing because that's how we're all different and learning from each other, and that they are getting along and talking and supporting each other. And also seeing the religious and the irreligious, all of us getting on together, which is wonderful. So this has really thrown a whole spanner in the works now with the Queen dying, because we've seen people who we've been supporting and been with for a while that are now very pro the Queen and people who don't know their history. And everyone is, of course, entitled to their own opinion. So that got me thinking, I'm going to talk about Nigeria, just about one part of it. But the thing is that, of course, I wanted to talk about my own country, Zimbabwe, and everything that was done to my people and the people of Zambia. and the fact that Cecil Rhodes, that racist supremacist, is buried in significant cultural and ground to Africa, to the whole of Africa, and he's still left there to this day, which to me is just absolutely horrific. And about all the diamonds and gold that were stolen from us to build De Beers Diamonds and Anglo-American London. But I thought there'll be lots of time for me to talk in the future about my country. Today I'm going to just talk a little bit about Nigeria, because I wanted to talk about the Biafra Civil War and the role that the Queen played in that. And I know that some of my Biafran friends couldn't be here tonight because of security issues and things that they have. So I'm going to hopefully do justice to the Biafran people and what's happened. It's like I've also said to you before, Kato, and this is the sad thing, I've never used my race as a privilege, as a card to get in wherever I wanted to. But I've realized now through the activism work that I do, that it's a very, very sad thing that because I'm white, my voice is listened to and heard in places where my black brothers and sisters aren't even granted the time of day. Meanwhile, they have so much more knowledge and experience and can speak so much better than I do, but they don't have that platform because they're black. And if they do, they aren't believed. They are called terrorists, or they are called militant, or they are called, trying to overthrow the government or whatever. So if ever a white person has used their skin as a privilege, I will do it willingly. With both hands, I will grab it. If it's enabling me to get my voice heard in places like the International Criminal Court and the United Nations and that, when someone like you, Kato, who is so well respected in your own right, in your career, in the personal work you do, and in the work you've done in education in Africa, aside from your activism work, won't get the same platform as me. It's just ridiculous. So I think for me to be in a position as a white person to speak out about the atrocities that my race have committed, and of course I am not descendant from like the Germans or other Europeans. I am descendant from the British race. I am fifth generation Zambian born, white African, 5th generation. My mother was. My father was British, from Liverpool. I'm a Liverpool Football Club supporter. It's the only club there is to support. I know a couple of people disagree with me, but Liverpool has a long history. It's a tragic area because it was the center of the transatlantic slave trade. Every single slave shipped off the African continent went via Liverpool first. I come from a family of very poor, illiterate mine workers and people who worked on the docks in Liverpool, making fishing nets and the woman catching shrimp and stuff like that to make potted shrimp to sell. My ancestors in the UK would have seen slave ships coming in, all of them, everything that went on there. They would have been the people who stood against slavery. Little known facts are also that there were slaves. There's a slave market in Liverpool. Slaves were sold in Liverpool, and slaves were made to build the docks of Liverpool, as they were a lot of things in London still standing today. I have walked the walls and the structures built by our Black African people in the UK that are still standing today. And I've also been into slave chambers on the East African coast of Pangani area and also Zanzibar, and I've seen where they were held before they were taken. So I've kind of done the whole circle with it, and there's a huge amount of things that the UK just chooses to delete from the history. Liverpool were also very involved in standing up against South African apartheid. My father was always drawn to Africa from when he was a young boy. He didn't know why. He came from a very poor family. No one in my father's direct line had ever been to Africa before, thank goodness. I managed to trace back as far as I could, because I would have hated them to have been involved with things that went on here. My father was drawn to Africa, and he left school at the age of 16, and he joined the Liverpool police force because he wanted to get to Africa, and he knew they were conscripting people for Japan and for Africa. And he was drafted to Zimbabwe a few years after his training. And he actually was one of the first white people to ever play on a Black African football team, because he said he didn't want to come over to Africa and play with a white team. He wanted to learn from Black players. And that's how he united with the people of Africa. But he had always been very pro-Africa. My father wrote after, in a book, after he died, I read it. He said even then, the UK royal family are Britain's equivalent of the German Nazi regime. That's what he felt. My father was an honourable man, and on his deathbed, he said to me that there was only one oath or promise that he ever broke in his life, and that was the oath that he made to the Queen of England, because they had to swear and make an oath before they left the UK when they came to Africa to do whatever they could at whatever cost to keep Africa for themselves, for the whites, for the UK. And they had to swear an oath on that, all the men that came over here, that they would not break that oath to the Queen. And my father said it's the only oath that he ever broke in his life was his oath to the Queen. And he never went back to the UK, ever. And he fought on the side of the Black African people in Zimbabwe to get rid of white rule. And I will also tell you then what happened. So much propaganda, so many things that happened in my country, Zimbabwe, that had been lied about to the world. Because in those days we didn't have TV, we only had radio. And the UK controlled all our press and all our media. So all the news we got, the international news that we got, came from the UK. Everything was controlled and fed to us about what was going on in the outside world. Everything was controlled and fed to the outside world about what was going on with us. And a lot of lies were told about what was happening in Zimbabwe. And that was also the Queen's doing. We were the least racist country of all. Sure, we had some very brutal German farmers, like same as the Afrikaans kind of breed of people. And there's racism between English-speaking whites and Afrikaans-speaking whites in South Africa that many people don't know about. As an English-speaking white, I'm not liked at all by the Afrikaners, especially because I am from an African country. So I am seen as a lower level white person than a person, say, from the UK, because I am an English speaker born in Africa, and I'm seen to be closer to Black people than I should be because of where I was born. So as a child, when I was in South Africa and when I had to finish my schooling here, I was discriminated against. I don't talk about it because I don't think that I should, because what I had done to me was not as bad, half as bad as what happened to Black people around me at the time. But yes, I was also a victim of racial discrimination because I'm an English-speaking white African. And I'm very proud of that fact because it separates me from them. So I see here, I think everybody has a story to tell about what's happened, but I'm just saying is that we must understand in Africa, if we look at the times, when our parents were born, I was born in the early 70s. So I was born into a country ruled by Britain. I also lived in Zimbabwe for many years after it was independent, and then my family had to get out of the country very quickly. I then landed in South Africa in the end of apartheid, the dying years of apartheid, and it absolutely devastated me. Kata, I think I'm the person I am today because of what I witnessed during apartheid, because you must understand I lived in a country where Black people were family, they were the same as me. I could not understand why one race was inflicting so much horror on another race. It's like seeing your family and friends being brutalized and being spoken to like animals, and it affected me so badly. I think that the passion that I have today, the drive that I have and the anger that I have and the way that I speak, it's making up for all those years when I was still at school. I had no voice here. I was also being discriminated against, not to any degree like Black Africans were. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but I'm just saying I had no voice at all. I had to sit and watch this. Do you know what it's like to have to sit and watch people that you love being abused like that and tortured, and hear the stories and the way they speak about people that you love? It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And I'm facing that same thing today. I was one of the first white people to take a white boss to court and stand on the side of my Black colleagues. In the last time of apartheid, I stand today for everything that I've always stood for then. I'm horrified to find that 28 years later, I am still facing a completely racist South Africa. Apartheid never ended in South Africa. That was Apartheid 1, I call it, and this is Apartheid 2. It's just better hidden now. It's done in a different way. And we see Black Africans now hating Black Africans from countries like Nigeria. And why? Because they are being turned against each other, and it's all to do with the plan that the West have over us. How can you explain 28 years of democracy, Kato, where no one's got their land back, where the Afrikaans tool of oppression of apartheid, Afrikaans, is still a main language, and it's taught in our schools. And I see little Black children going off to school to be taught a ridiculous version of history. Apartheid has really been watered down in the school system. It's been a very diluted version of apartheid. It's kind of like even slave trade is being taught as then everyone was bad and then they turned good and everyone lived happily ever after, which is not the case. Someone was saying to me the other day, it's been so changed over the years that soon, and this goes for the whole of Africa, if we let it, it will be the whites that are made out to be the victims. Not the Black people. So the fact that it is still very prevalent in our school systems. And the way that I just see my Black African brothers and sisters talking about the Queen's death has been quite an eye-opener, I must say. I just keep saying to Black African people, you've got to rise up and know what wonderful, great, amazing people that you are. The West doesn't owe us anything. The West needs Africa more than Africa needs them. And we've got to stop seeing ourselves as being this downtrodden race that is no good for anything, that's going to live a life of poverty and despair and hunger, that we're not as good, not as intelligent, and not as capable, not as worthy, because we are all those things and so much more. And we've got to stop feeling honored that the West are doing things for us. We've got to stop relying on them for help. And we've got to start standing on our own 2 feet as African people, and we've got to start uniting for that. So I think that what we should do maybe with the show is we should get people to come, knowledgeable people from each country who have actually can tell us what's happened in their country. Like I can tell you what's happened in my country with Rhodes stealing all our diamonds and gold from Zambia and us, because we were one. And then I can also talk today a bit about Nigeria, but you've got stories about Uganda and Kenya. I mean, the Mau Mau uprising was another absolute horror that we aren't taught about in our schools, or it's just glazed over. Maybe that's a good way if every single country can come on the show and tell us what's happened in their country to do with the UK. We can start seeing a similarity here and realize that it has happened to all of us. Maybe that will be something, Kato, that starts making people wake up and seeing that they need to unite. It's not their presidents or opposition party members that are telling them these things. It's happening absolutely everywhere. I'm just going to have a sip of water. So today I'm going, how long have we been on for? 40 minutes, okay. Today I'm going to talk about, my hair, sorry. Talk about, my cats all around me, but they're not walking across the screen tonight. I'm going to talk about the genocide of the Biafran people. Now, Nigeria is a very complicated country. It's a massive country. It's got so many different states, and they've got federal governments, and then they've got the state governments and everything. I first became involved with Nigeria about 3 years ago. I started getting involved on the humanist groups. Through the work that I was doing researching the African education system, I happened to meet or hear of a man named Precious Ebenezer, who was writing a book about Africa's true history, our Black Egyptian history. And so our work intersected, and I started getting to know him. I started getting to know people on the Nigerian groups. And I became friends on Facebook with Mubarak Bala, the president of the Humanist Association of Nigeria, an ex-Muslim atheist who had a huge following throughout Africa, a very honorable man. And it was not long after that he was kidnapped by the Buhari regime. And he was for a Facebook post, but he is a political prisoner. They would have got him for something. Conveniently, it's been used as a blasphemy, which he was speaking out against his old religion. But he is there. It's a politically motivated reason that Mubarak is there. Mubarak Bala is a very, very important person, extremely important to us all in Africa, which is one of the reasons why I have put my heart and soul behind his campaign for his release. So he's now been sentenced to 25 years in prison, and I've never stopped fighting for justice for Mubarak. During my time in Nigeria, it was very difficult. You know, when you first get involved in a new country, people don't want to let you in, especially if you're a non-Western white, because they think you're like, what are you doing here? You know, I can't benefit them in any way. It's not like I got loads and loads of money and I'm a donor or something. I'm just me. And all my Tanzanian friends and that were saying, no, go for it, you know, and we'll support you. And I said, no, but these people don't know who I am. So it's very difficult because nobody wants to be honest with you about things because they're not quite sure who you are or what your reasons are for being there. So I had to just kind of sit back and work Nigeria out for myself to begin with. So I thought, I knew what my heart was telling me was right. So I started looking for people that were following similar things. And I noticed with the Lekki Tollgate massacre, that was an absolute atrocity committed by the government of Nigeria, the so-called government military regime, where the military went in and gunned down innocent people and lied about it. So then, of course, I knew that the people that were standing up against this were good people. They weren't involved with terrorism or anything. And then I also noticed I had people phoning me and saying, can you help us with a man by the name of Nnamdi Kanu? And I said, who's he? And then I started learning about the Biafra state. He is their leader, the leader of the Biafra people. He has been imprisoned also. He was taken around about the same time as Mubarak and Dadiata and a lot of other people that were taken for political reasons, which is also kept very secret and quiet. But what I'm saying is that he was actually kidnapped in Kenya. So there again, we have a connection between our dictator, criminal governments, all working hand in hand. He was taken back from Kenya to Nigeria, Nnamdi Kanu. Then I started the Biafra guys. The Biafra guys are very fierce, brave, warrior kind of people. The ones that I know, and a lot of them have been imprisoned and tortured over the years and had horrific things done to them, but they come back fighting. You know, they don't just sit down and take it. Conveniently for the regime now, anything the horrific that happens in Nigeria is pinned. The whole the dictator president's number one thing is to pin terrorism charges. You know, if ever you are protesting innocently, you are seen overthrowing the governments, and you know, I talk about this all the time. So Buhari's ultimate goal is to pin Nnamdi Kanu as a terrorist and the Biafra people as a terrorist organization. So what happened, and I do hope I'm going to do this justice now, because we really needed to have some from Biafra tonight, so please correct me, but I'm not going to go into all the details of the leadership and all that. I'm just going to give you an overview of Biafra. Was a huge portion of Africa, was the Biafra Kingdom. And in 1967 to 1970, there was a genocide of the people of Biafra who wanted to break away and run their own independent state, their own independent republic. Now, what happened is it then became known as the Biafran War, which was a civil war. 3 million Nigerians, people were killed in the most horrific ways. They were starved to death and had all their resources cut from them. I have got, which have become publicly available over the years, are classified UK government documents about the Biafran War. And I just wanted to read some of it as an overview to people to see what's going on. I see one of our guests has come on, Kato. Let me just talk in the meantime. So Harold Wilson, the Labour government at the time, the UK armed and backed the Nigerian federal government to kill and slaughter as many of the Biafran people as they possibly could, because the UK had oil interests in Nigeria, and the Biafran people were in the way of those oil interests. This was under Queen Elizabeth's rule, and nothing like this would have been done without her full consent and her organising and approving it at all. So The UK armed and backed Nigeria's aggressors. They basically said to the federal government, you know, we'll arm you and we'll give you all the support possible to eliminate the Biafran people. So they supplied arms to the federal government and millions of rounds of ammunition because they wanted to protect their oil interests. I remember my father saying to me that the UK had been sniffing around Africa for years looking for oil. They were looking for it. It had been found in the UAE. They knew it had to be in Nigeria. And everyone was like hoping that they wouldn't find it. And then, of course, they did in the early 60s. And unfortunately, ever since then, Nigeria's been at war with each other, and it's just been horrific. So the UK government, and there is recorded evidence of this. It's factual, but it's obviously kept very quiet. They don't like to advertise the facts, and certainly not teach it in history. They wanted to protect their oil interests. So at the end of the day, as per the West's usual stance, it is money, wealth and power over human lives, especially Black lives, because human lives mean nothing. Black lives mean even less to these people. Machine guns, hand grenades, armored vehicles, a military helicopter, military aircrafts, but like what the USA is actually supplying to Nigeria today in their fight against keeping terrorism off the continent. Machine guns, mortars, artillery bombs. There was so much that was supplied to Nigeria that was played down by the UK. They made out that they were supplying them with regular arms that they always had over the years. Meanwhile, they were upping it, and they were even bringing in arms through other ways that didn't. So we've got someone. Kato? Kato's gone off now. Are you there, Kato? Oh, it's gone dead again. Okay, so all the Biafra people wanted was independence. They just wanted independence, and they actually declared their own independence in May 1967, and that's when the onslaught really happened. I will quote a direct quote from the declassified government documents that was made by UK at the time. Our direct interests are trade and investments, including an important stake in Shell, BP, British Petroleum, in the eastern region, which is the Biafra region. Shell and British Petroleum, BP, jointly co-owned with the Nigerian federal government at the time. And they had about £200 million worth of stock in 1967. That's a lot of money, even in today's terms. And their company was the largest producer of oil in Nigeria, and all that oil was coming from Biafra State. So 200 million pounds of oil in 1967 was stolen from the people of Biafra. Not only was their oil stolen, which was of little consequence to them because human lives were lost. 3 million of their people are officially recorded as being just wiped off the face of the earth. That is the genetics and then the culture of a whole group of people. Not forgetting what the UK had already done years before with the Benin City, the looting of Benin City, where they completely massacred, desecrated Benin City. Benin City was the most civilized, developed city in the world at the time because we were the most advanced, developed continent. And the British troops came there and they were amazed at the advancements that they saw. Things like outdoor street lighting at night was developed and first seen in Benin City, which the UK stole that idea and took it back as their own, completely destroyed Benin City so no trace of it remained, and removed all the artifacts. The Benin bronzes are well known, that still haven't been returned today. You'll know if anyone knows much about art, I don't, but from what I've learned, the techniques and the workmanship in those artworks are unmatched to this day by any of the so-called famous Monets and Picassos and that, unmatched, which just shows you. I was having a look online a while ago at all the looted artifacts, all the stolen goods of Uganda's that the British Museum holds on to. And I was also very impressed with the level and the standard of artwork of the Ugandan people at the time. Far from being the barbaric, wild, primitive race that they made Black Africa out to be. We were, in fact, the opposite. Most medicine techniques in that practice today all originated from Black African people and Egypt. So we just go on here to say that shall have much to lose if the federal military government don't achieve the expected victory that the UK wanted at the cost of human lives. The sole immediate British interest in Nigeria is that the Nigerian economy should be brought back to a condition in which our substantial trade and investment in the country can be further developed, and particularly so we can regain access to important oil installations. The important oil installations that the UK government are talking about in this document is Biafra, the Republic of Biafra, and all their people. It's much like we see happening in Karamoja, Uganda today, and it's much as I think we see happening also in northern Nigeria today. People are being slaughtered and killed by our governments for their land now to get their minerals, gold and all sorts that's been discovered there. They learned from the British. This is also why I take great exception to the fact that Black African people are seen as being this barbaric, violent race that just breed like rabbits. That's what they say in the West. And all they know is death and violence. It's the only thing they listen to. It's the only thing they understand. That is, can I swear, bullshit. Black African people, you've got to stop believing that nonsense. And I will say, as a white who has lived here for over 50 years, there's a very small percentage of Black African people who are violent and aggressive. We did not know genocide, rape, torture, mass executions, thievery, thuggery, until the white British came onto our continent with their Bibles under the one arm and their guns on the other. That's the truth. Our dictator presidents have learned from the best. And I say to people, you can't just think that the West are, oh, we're so honored to have them in our midst. They are just as corrupt. Criminal, murderous, thieving.
Linda,
Let's go ahead.
Welcome, Joseph. Joseph, welcome. Can you hear us?
Hi, Joseph. Maybe his mic is muted.
I can't hear you.
Maybe to my side.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Your microphone off. Your microphone is off. Yeah,
it's on now.
I'll put it on. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
2 thumbs up.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
So, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, I just found, I think I've listened to some like close to 10 to 15 minutes. I can also see Mr. Kato. Just like the theme of this presentation is an assessment of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. Yes. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I was saying, thank you. Thank you, Kato.
I'm going to give a very brief introduction. The person who is speaking is my sister Linda T, based in South Africa. Linda is African, born in Africa, raised in Africa, and pro-African. So you followed her, this to continue from there, and she was giving basically a criticism of the royal family and colonialism and the impact in Africa. Joseph, who has just joined us, is Joseph. There is music in the background. Joseph, there is music in the background.
The what?
Off. If you can
I can hear you.
There is music in your background. Can you hear me? There is music in your background.
We're going to boogie here. It's the music.
Okay.
That's better.
Joseph. Yeah, there is music. That's better.
I've switched off.
A journalist in Uganda, and has been working at doing journalism. Yeah, it's okay now. Joseph has been doing journalism for the last 10 years, and he works with the CBS, Central Broadcasting Service, radio station in Uganda. He has worked on TV, and he has written newspapers, and he has researched quite a lot on the monarchy and relation on the said subject. So, Joseph, you're welcome. Just said that Linda gave us a criticism, so you found us on that track. So, Joseph, you can continue from whatever angle you want. The floor is yours. You have 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Kato, and thank you, Linda, for the presentation. Oh yeah, I think Linda is a sort of PJ Powers. There was that musician in South Africa. She was very, very popular, PJ Powers. And yeah, she was as much African as we, the original natives. And I really understand why her concerns. Now, ever since when Queen Elizabeth died, I expected the kind of angles, especially the one that came from EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, part of Malema.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That kind of angle, yeah. But Mr. Kato knows my approach always to such issues. My approach always borders on the line that it is time we Africans stopped scapegoating our problems to others. Now, there are things we first have to get right. Yes, the accusations about the British are true. They pillaged, when they colonized, they ransacked, they exploited, they took much of our minerals, and actually they are still taking some of these minerals and our resources. Yeah, but what we fail to get right, one, is we fail to contextualize the time when some of these things took place. Now,
yes,
society, there were times when society was rotated around conquest. All the great societies we know in the world, be it the British, be it the French, be it the Zulu in South Africa, be it with the Baganda here in Uganda, they didn't get to the apex or where they are by smiling and handshakes. It was usually spears and arrows and blood. Now, we have to contextualize that whenever we are approaching some of these topics. And that those times usually called for such circumstances. I think there were even times when people knew not of human rights, of being fair. We today can blame someone if you're using that kind of reasoning in the 21st century. But back then, in the 1600s, 1500s, that was the norm. It was the norm.
Yes.
For instance, when Malema speaks about how the British treated the native South Africans, or when we speak about how the British treated the Native Americans, the ones we call the Red Indians, we also fail to appreciate that, for instance, in South Africa, where you are, there were those Mofekane Wars. The Mofekane Wars, they were so bloody. They were so bloody. And that is how Shaka got the Zulus to the apex of being the dominant tribe in South Africa. Here in Uganda, always give people an example. Here in Uganda, in this Interlacustrine region, the original natives of this place are the Batwa. They are the Batwa. But we are with the rest of the societies, with the Baganda, the Banyankore, the Banyoro, the Batoro, and all the rest. We have since pushed them to into the foothills of Rwenzori Mountains. They are there actually. They are people who are supposed to be protected as an endangered species, you know. So sometimes when we speak about colonialism and how the colonialists treated us, it is like we sound like it is fair for we the Africans to subjugate one another, but it's not fair for one who isn't of our skin to subjugate us. That is where I get a misunderstanding with very many intellectuals. I would want us to say that it is unfair all through. Actually, for instance, here in Uganda, the people who peddle that kind of colonialism, they're the people who took over from the colonialists. And these guys are far, far more unfair than the British. When you look at the blacks who took over from the British, they are far, far more unfair to the citizens and the natives than the British. Actually, today I was on a radio show and I posed the question I always pose, that let some African countries risk and try to hold referenda, plebiscites at theirs, referendums at theirs, like my Uganda, Nigeria. Let them take the risk, try to prepare a referendum, simply asking, should the British return or not? They will be in for shock. They will be in for shock. It is a vote of no confidence in the leaders who took over. It is a vote of no confidence in the leaders who took over. Let them try to organize a referendum. These things we celebrate independence on October 9th. And they ask Ugandans whether the British return or not. And you'll be in for shock the kind of result that will come back. Most people will say let them come back and rule us. Because the rulers, the black Africans who took over from the British are far worse than those guys. The British could listen to you. They could take you to court. These guys think they have a right to kill you, and the white man doesn't have a right to kill you. It is like we have a right to be unfair to ourselves, but then the others who come from, those ones who come from across the African continent shouldn't be unfair to us. That is the irony of it. Then there is also something, it is complex. It is a contradiction. Whenever someone speaks about colonialism having been so bad, like let me give you an example of my own president, Mr. President Museveni, General Museveni. He's always blaming colonialism, how the traditional leaders of back then allowed the colonialists to come and take over, how those kings were fake. And I always quip that, look here, if we really want to undo the real undoing colonialism, let us first disintegrate these countries they put up, because these countries we are fighting over are their projects. They found us at Baganda, and then they bundled us into some with other tribes, and since then we always going for each other's neck while pretending we are Ugandans, and then we are so patriotic, and then we blame the British, and then we appreciate their creation called Uganda. I don't know what kind of confusion that is. Let us first all disintegrate. We go back as the Baganda. The other ones are the Biafrans. You have the ones from the south. Then you have you have the Akamba in Kenya. You have the Chikuyus. You disintegrate, and then we sit and agree as natives. But these creations we are in, these are British creations. In fact, originally they were even supposed to be run as companies. This was the Imperial British East African Company. And then later on, they changed them into political, some sort of federations. But originally, they were running us as business entities, as companies. So up to now, we are in those kinds of projects. But then also at the same time, complaining that these guys were bad. At the same time, being proud that we are Ugandans, we are Nigerians. I just don't understand how that works. Then, we also have got to appreciate the fact Because when we Africans are complaining about British and French French imperialism, we fail to appreciate the fact that because we always attribute our shortcomings and our low level of development and the kind of exploitation that has gone on, we always tag it to our colonial masters. But here is the problem: those British you see also were colonial masters of the great USA, the United States of America. They were colonial masters of China today that wants to take over from the USA. How is it that these guys today are world beaters? And for us, we are here complaining that British ruled us. They shortchanged us. Please, it is our fellow blacks who are ruling today. We can't because now Uganda, I think we are even, it could even be because when you count 1962, those are 40. Actually, we are celebrating, I think, 60 years this year of independence. But we are still attributing our problems to someone who left 60 years back. You know? And that is the norm here in Africa. Everything we blame there, you know. And we even don't appreciate this because, for instance, here in my own Uganda, you could ask, why don't we appreciate that they gave us a common language you can use and agree upon? Because I think English is the most used language in the world with something like 1.3 billion speakers. Then you have Mandarin, the Chinese, that is 1.2. Then I think you have Hindi, then you have Spanish, and then you have French. In my own Uganda, because if you ask someone that now what was going to be the common language in Africa, they will tell you, we have Swahili. We have Swahili.
Yeah.
But you come here in Uganda and you tell him Uganda to use Swahili. He won't, because of that language's association with the political upheaval, you know. So we are not the only ones. We are not the only ones who are using English. Some say that is another sign of imperialism. But at the end of the day, we have to appreciate it is a common language we all can agree upon. No one among us owns it. Because, for instance, in my own Uganda, if you are to get to know Uganda, the most commonly used local language is Luganda. But there is no way any government is going to ever accept Luganda as a national language because they will feel like that is the Baganda being dominant over the other tribes.
Yes, I see. Yeah.
So
sure,
there are things we have to appreciate, like they gave us a common language. Then you also have, sometimes instead of just laying blame, sometimes you just appreciate and you have to learn from someone. You see,
sure, no, absolutely.
Unlike, for instance, the Russians, or unlike the Russians or unlike the Americans, they have some good resources. Russia today is it wants to untwist the rest of Europe with its oil. You have the US; they also have a lot of oil. They have some other resources. China also has some rare minerals. But you know, those British, they have nothing. They have nothing in their soil, I think, apart from coal. It is the Scots who have some oil. But these guys have managed to survive in the world and just be near there, up at the apex, just with their brains. And while we Africans, we have the great Congo having every natural resource you'll ever find in this world, and they're just there rotating around in circles. You know, how did these guys, you just look at the way they market the Premier League. Sometimes you just have to accept a society that they have been good at their game. And instead of me complaining, what is it I can learn from them? What is it I can learn from them? And then I also always tell my fellow Africans that nowhere, of course, I'm not so much of a believer, but for the believers, there is the Bible, there is the Quran, or there is the Torah, or the Hindu texts. It's not written anywhere that this world will be fair. It's not written anywhere that this world will be fair. If you want to make it fair, it is you, the African, who is going to have to first go to the apex of the world and then create a fair world. You know. But even we Africans, we are not fair. We are not fair to one another. Those are the wars we are always fighting. The Tigray and the Oromos. In Uganda, you're always going to find now there is the bitter rivalry between the Baganda and the guys who are ruling. Back then, it was the Baganda and the Bacholi. The Biafran war, that one we have spoken about. The Cameroonians even can't agree. They are the same stock, but there are those ones who speak French and those ones who speak English, and they're fighting over that. That is how stupid we Africans are. You know, they're all of the same stock, but just the French can't entertain the English speakers. You know, you just go to South Sudan. For us, we see them as the same, but they're fighting that these ones are the newer, these ones are. So it's quite, unless we Africans sit at table and we say, now, look, what is it we are fighting over? Because one of the things we have to agree upon is all the rest who come to dominate us. Now it is the Chinese who want to take over. Back then it was the British. You once had the even Egypt once tried us. Then you had the Turks. They always exploit our own differences and bickerings.
They do.
If you're united, it's going to be very hard for someone to come and penetrate you. And but then you're going to find the British. They come, then they say now, the Muganda has a problem with the Bunyoro. Then he allies with the Muganda. He uses the Muganda to go and subjugate Bunyoro. And then 50 years later, then it is the Muganda who is crying. The Britons have shortchanged him. That is how the world operates. So unless we get our act together as Africans, and for us who have conversations and talk with people like Linda Tilley, it even helps, because you see, there are my fellow Africans who are going to take a look at Linda Tilley and they say, now she's also calling herself African, because for us, most of our reasoning is based more on differences than the common things we share as humans. That is why for the Malemas, the Malemas, for them when they speak, it has never gotten into their head that it doesn't help in any way to always speak like you sound like. In South Africa, you're one day going to drain South Africa of the white skin. When Malema speaks, that is the kind of projection he sends, you know. And it even comes back to us here this side. I know even the British we are talking about, they have their differences. They have the Irish, they have the Scots. When you hear I've heard an Englishman say, we was, and I know the proper English is we were. But where he's coming from, we was works, because for them that is his area. So even them have differences. But now when it comes to we Africans, Mr. Kato will tell you that we'll even look at someone and we say, now that one with the long nose, that is how. And even though everyone who takes over thinks they are going to dominate the race forever. It is going to be very hard. I'm going to tell you, if Obama good as he was, if he had stood in Kampala or some Nigerian city, they would have told him, you Malato, what do you want with us? You know? And that is how we Africans are behaving. We are so parochial. At the end of the day, we decry how others are racist towards us, but then we are also so racist towards ourselves. You know? Sure. We are so racist towards ourselves. So while we are decrying Britain and how it subjugated the world, how it exploited us, we need to do some self-searching as Africans, how we view one another, before we even blame our problems on others who are far, far away. Because it is the natural order of things. Everyone wants to exploit another. When I go to the shop, I want to purchase something at the lowest price. You see, for you people, you have supermarkets. First, we have shops where we bargain. But when I go to a shop, I want to purchase something at the lowest price possible. And the shopkeeper wants to sell to me at the highest price possible. So it is about how everyone plays their game, how you bargain. And that is how the world is run. This thing of thinking that there is going to be a day that will ever dawn, and then some people will sit and have pity for we Africans and they say, these Africans with their gold and diamond. Okay, you guys, how much do you want for these things? They are going to come. It is natural. They're always going to come and try to shortchange us. It is us who have to be smart and to be on top of our game. So in brief, that is the kind of line I wanted to take. I always take that line that we Africans should stop thinking that a day is going to dawn and some people will have pity on us and be fair to us. Thank you, Mr. Kato, and thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that very interesting perspective.
Very good.
My huge admiration for
you
you.
gave that. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. To add on the words of Linda, yeah, you have my admiration for balancing the act. Linda had given the and gave us another balancing act so that we can also look at it from a positive angle, because much of the time we Africans look at colonialism, look at the monarchy from a different angle. We're always bringing the negatives, and the negatives, and sometimes we forget the good, which Joseph has actually brought, I think, about 10%, to be honest. There are many good things which the Bush did for our countries. We have to acknowledge that also. But also, there are many bad things they did, which I think Joseph has strung out, balancing the act of the good side, which we didn't see.
Definitely.
But also, as Joseph said, there are also bad things we have done on our own as Africa. Because, Linda, how do you explain? How do you explain, for example, why in South Africa blacks are killing each other? Yeah? That yes, the whites there didn't balance the economic act. For example, they own much of the land, the wealth, but Africans are killing each other. Why? So, whereas we want to blame the whites for everything, honestly, as black people, we have our weaknesses, which we must acknowledge. And there I agree with Joseph. As black people, we have our weaknesses, which we end up tying on the whites. And Joseph has said, actually, you may be surprised if you had any freedom in Uganda, whereas I hate colonialism personally, I'm sure people will vote for the Bush to come back and rule in Uganda. Yet, I will vote against them. Linda, I should tell you this. If you want the vote to have the Uganda, I will vote against them, but thousands of Ugandans are going to vote that they come back. Do you know why? Because the black guys mistreated us so much that we wish we had the white folks back. Linda, I didn't tell you, but I should also that my grandfather, when getting Mukasa, loved the Queen so much. Why? Because he was a soldier in the army, and he fought alongside the British in World War II, where the Queen was a fighter. So my grandfather, father to my father, Mukasa, used to say, "I'm the king's soldier. I'm the queen's soldier." He used to say, "I'm the queen's soldier." And you can imagine this African was so proud of the Queen. You understand? Because he called himself the soldier. He was a soldier, and the uniform, the medals and all that. But he could walk in the village with his queen uniform and the medals and say, "I'm the queen's soldier." So, whereas we think that many Africans hated the Queen, actually some, including my grandfather, loved the Queen. So, it's something which we need to look at from so many sides. That some people love the Queen, like my grandfather. My grandfather loved whites, yet others hate whites. So it's a very hard thing. When today I said to have a white mother, some races say, "Why should you say you have a white mother? You're black." And I tell them I have a white mother. And I love her so much. So these things are complicated. And the problem is that we have become racist in a way also as black people. And Joseph, I should also acknowledge, as I conclude, there are things which have done badly and continue to do today to Africans. We should accept that. There are things which the royal family has done bad and has refused to acknowledge that they have done wrong. For example, I was sharing a page on which I am where there are like 100 Scottish people. Joseph, I've even shared the screenshots on our page. If you look at the screenshots, you are going to see white people hate the Queen more than you can imagine.
Sorry.
White people who are Scottish, who hate the Queen.
Anti-monarchy.
That you may even think, oh, I thought it was Africans hating the Queen. Yeah, but can you imagine even the Scottish, many of them hate the Queen? I've posted those screenshots on the page. You are going to be surprised. So I mean,
yeah,
there are things which the royal family has done which hurt most of us. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Kato.
Yes, Jose.
Hello?
I hear
yeah,
you.
that one I had already mentioned about the Scots.
Yes, yes.
I also know about the Irish. I also know about the Irish and the bad blood. But here's the thing: the British can even give the Scots a chance to hold referendums to decide whether they leave or not. You just try saying you want to secede in Africa, and you see, you're not even allowed to think that you can have self-rule. You understand? So the African can't allow another African to have an idea that for me, I want to be distinct. You just give me a chance to vote. Yeah? Because the Scots have held referendums before. The Irish, they fought a very, very bitter war. Actually, they were some of the first terrorists, the bombings. Today, there is an independent Ireland. You have Northern Ireland. It is also, there were the killings with the IRA, but at the end of the day, they came to an agreement. That in Africa, why do you think these guys were so bitter with this Putin guy of Ukraine? That by the time a society accepts that we should no longer allow war on our continent, you understand? Sure. And then for you have my president here. He has soldiers in Somalia, he has soldiers in Congo, he has soldiers in South Sudan. He's always pretending like it is peacekeeping, but it is waging war. You understand? So Africans even don't have mercy for fellow Africans to desist from using weapons on fellow Africans. You understand? They're going to say how these guys are selling to us weapons, but who is using them on who? It is with the blacks who are purchasing their weapons and using them on ourselves, and then blaming them how they manipulate us. Now, in this case, are we so stupid that we are like young kids to be given weapons and we fight between ourselves? So, for me, my assertion is we Africans have to do soul searching within ourselves.
Sure. Yes, you raised and just really interesting.
I want to conclude and take back to Leader. Yes, I'm going to conclude my part and take back to you to conclude, and then we get out of here. And this is my message, Jose. Yes, I agree with you. Africans have a problem, Jose. We black people, because Africans are white, as you can see, Linda is African, no question about it. Africans are Chinese, Africans are Indian, are black. So Africans are multicolored, that's one thing. But us black Africans have a problem also, which we must accept. But also, as we have a problem as a black Africans, we must also acknowledge that the British have done us injustice. Me, there's no way I can accept that they haven't done anything wrong. And I have to say that they continue to do injustice to us in so many ways. Now, Linda was saying that we need to have these things corrected. We are going to have another show on this. For example, why don't they allow us to have our artifacts back? Artifacts back, as Linda was saying, because artifacts simply form part of our history. Why is it that when we go to museums in Europe, we find things about our culture and cannot allow us to have them back in our countries?
But Kato, let me also interject. Let me interject a little bit.
Someone went to Germany. Listen, first wait, Joseph. Okay, fine, go ahead.
Let me interject a little bit. There we who have a conscience about these things, the facts, how they bring about how they bring out our history. But you know very well, some few years back, the Uganda Museum, they wanted to build their skyscraper. You're going to bring those artifacts, yeah. But do the leaders value them? Do the leaders value them? Do we value the things we so far have? You see, it is very complex. You bring them back, and then tomorrow you find they are weather beaten. They have been left in the rain. Then they are being transferred from, because you remember the Uganda Museum. They wanted. We had to put up a fight. The guys just wanted to raise it down and then put up a skyscraper. For them, they don't value these things of what actually African leaders want to scrap. They always want to scrap things that remind us of our history, because they always want to build history starting with them. Museveni wants to build Uganda's history starting in 1986. You understand? So you're going to bring back that fact, and then tomorrow it is you'll even regret and say, perhaps I did stayed in a British museum, I would have found it there and seen it from there and come back. Yes.
Yes. Just actually to add on more, just I agree with you 100%, and I agree with Linda 100%, and I also give my take. Now here's my take. My thinking is that yes, the British did so many good things. In fact, I am speaking their language. In fact, I've taught English language for over 15 years, Joseph, you know. In fact, I have earned a living using the English language. So yes, we can say there are good things they have done. All of us can say that. But there are things which we cannot let go. Things including controlling our economies on remote. Things including dictating our policies. Joseph, as an economist, I can tell you there are many things we are not yet independent. We may not blame the royal family, but the royal family pulls strings. But I acknowledge your analysis, Joseph, and you are right, that we cannot run away from ourselves and say, oh, blacks are okay. In fact, we are trouble. We are more confused, we are more troublesome, that some Africans, black Africans, wish we had the whites back ruling us. I agree on that. Some of them actually wish we had the whites ruling us. But personally, I hate colonialism. I've told you, Joseph, you know where I come from, that my grandfather benefited from the Queen. I should say that without actually being sorry. That my grandfather fought and benefited from the Queen. And my grandfather used to say, I'm the Queen's soldier. I was so proud about the Queen. But how many of my grandfathers do we have who fought and came back, who fought and became rich, like my grandfather? So there are many people whose lands were taken because of the poor distribution of land. And who was doing that? Men from England coming to our country and deciding how our land must be parceled. Joseph, you know that. So there are injustices which we are committed by the colonists in Africa. People have been killed in Kenya. Thousands of people killed in Mau Mau rebellion. Joseph, you know that history. In a country where the king was in 1952, the queen was in 1952, and she never even had the courtesy to pay respect, to acknowledge the mistakes, to pay reparations to the people who lost their lives. So whereas we respect the queen and the dead, we are not shy of talking about the bad things the British did in our countries. And we don't speak because we hate them, we love them. Joseph, you know my history. You know how many friends I have who are British. You know we work with them. But the history which is bad, we shall speak it. But also, we shall not fail to say our leaders and ourselves have a weakness. Because why should we be killing each other as black people? So in my conclusion, we have to do a soul searching, as you said, and I agree. But also I agree with Linda saying the wrongs must be rectified. She's right. There are many wrongs the British have done, not only to Africans, by the way, all over the world. That's why, as you said, Joseph, the Scottish are bitter. Many of them, not all of them, are bitter about the rule of the English. But when we start blaming, we blame everyone. We think every white is actually part of the problem. The problem is the royal family, in my view, which was amassing wealth. Joseph, he gave an example of the Buganda kingdom. Which fault was? Who do we blame for Buganda kingdom's misdeeds? The kings and the beneficiaries. But time has also come to understand that we need to move on. Leaders like Museveni, and I agree with you, Joseph, are using the colonialists to hide their mistakes. Leader, Museveni is going to steal from us, kill us, and when the British blame him, he says, to hell with imperialists, to hell with the colonialists. But they are telling him, please behave. Don't kill your people. Don't imprison them. When the British tell him to do right, he blames them and he hides under the banner of imperialists, colonialists. So we also have to acknowledge that dictators in Africa, like Mugabe, we are using an imperialist talk to hide their weaknesses. So Joseph is right. We have to have a balancing act where dictators in Africa, when they are blamed by whites, they say they are imperialists, they are colonialists. They are hiding their misdeeds under the banner of Pan-Africanism. So I want to conclude my part, Linda. Thank you, and Joseph. I'm going to take it back to Joseph to conclude, and Linda will wind up. Joseph, please conclude, and then we wind up.
Okay, thank you, Kato. Thank you, Linda. I think I also have got to be understood well. I'm not saying that the British and all the other imperial powers don't have any mistake they made. You are well aware. I'm so much of a Uganda loyalist. I just love the kingdom, and I know how much the British shortchanged us as with the Uganda. We should have been an independent country. But they bundled us together with others, and this bundling us together with others has caused a lot of political instability, and in between a lot of lives have been lost. I also know how much the British took in terms of some of our resources, some of our knowledge. Actually, they even repatriated knowledge, and I also know how they manipulate world economies to keep us indebted and at their mercy. But most of these things, like I've said, they happen because, one, there are always people within us who collaborate with them, who want to gain personal favor and individual benefit. And if it were that we really, one of the things the Queen is attributed with is she gave her life to serving the nation. Because if you were given chance to either be Queen Elizabeth or Princess Anne, you would be more comfortable being Princess Anne, because you're not going to be in the limelight. You're going to be having some good resources, but not in the limelight. But by the time you decide to be queen, then you've decided to serve the nation, and she served. But when you look at African leaders, usually, are they really serving the nation, or are they serving their own interests and their close family, friends? And so those are the things we should be asking ourselves. When we put our house in order, then it will be hard for outsiders to come and manipulate us. It is that simple. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Joseph. Linda, Joseph, thanks for joining us tonight. We shall have a continuation of this debate in the next subsequent debates, because it's quite very interesting. Linda, back to you. You are going to give us your parting shots and conclusion. Linda, back to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jose.
Linda, back to you for concluding.
Thanks, Kato. Thank you, Jose. It's great to have you on the show. Talk to you all the time. My greatest admiration as a journalist. I know that you have one of the hardest jobs in the world, with so many of your people have been silenced coming out of Nigeria and Uganda, and I really appreciate your knowledge and your writing. It's so true what you say. I actually touched on it in the you know, we also need to come up with our own identity as people and work together. And we need to understand that there are good and bad people in every religion, country, which is what like you were saying about how there's a lot of upset on our continent for things that Black Africans have done to Black Africans and still happening today. And where does the buck stop? Where do we say this is enough now? Come up with our own sense of identity, and at the end of the day, it's all down to good and evil in the world, and which side we choose to play in life. And those of us who are on the side of good and want only what's best for our people and our continent, you know, we need to start standing up together, and we need to start standing against all the wrongs that we see. And uniting the African continent is the way that we can do it, because we face the same issues in all of our countries. And Africa is our continent, and I would hate to see us going back into some kind of white rule here, because I really think that we've had enough of that, and we need to stand together. But because so much has happened in our past, we will never be the same Africa that we were before. Our land issues alone, if you look at how do you disperse land when some people have been displaced from their land for like 400 years, 200 years, you know, all the people who were pushed out of the national parks, like Kazinga National Park in Uganda, where those people went for decades and decades and decades and centuries now. How do you relocate people back? Like the Xhosa and the Zulu tribes originate from the Nguni people in West Africa. Where do you say they go? Are they South African? Are they West African? We have to come up with our own new way of doing things, and we can only do it by uniting as a continent and talking to each other about our problems. And I do agree, yes, we do have a lot to thank the UK for, and China, and all the continents in the world, as they have a lot to thank us for. It's the thing, it's like our true spirit as African people is it's helping other people with your knowledge, and we should be a multicultural where we've got lots of things that help assist us as a continent. And like the rest of the world has also had lots of things that have assisted them that's come from Africa, and also opening up to these things and working together as a united people. Because at the end of the day, I know that we've had a lot of violence and things, and I hear what you say. I mean, I speak to people now who say to me that they would far rather be ruled by Idi Amin than by Museveni. And I can't disagree with them. I grew up during the Ugandan genocide when Idi Amin was ruling, and it was brutal and it was extreme, but it's what we see today is a different level of brutality. I think it is getting worse, as you mentioned, Jose, about the atrocities that Black people have. Black violence is absolutely horrific, and it seems to be getting worse. Just when you think you've heard the worst of what can be done to a person or how a person can be killed, you think it's the worst you'll ever hear or see or watch in your life. Something else comes along that just makes you even more horrifically shocked about it. And I think we need to also, you mentioned China. China is a huge threat to the African continent. I think we also need to start standing together as African people too against things like that. I fear that if we don't, you know, we will be in a position one day where maybe that is the one thing that will unite us is when we really are invaded by a completely different continent again, and we can't allow that to happen. So it's very interesting, but the only way we can overcome these problems is by having discussions like this, by talking to people from other countries and getting the knowledge and experience and insights. So much for coming on the show tonight as well. Very interesting perspectives there, and you are so right in what you say. We have to find a way of coming up with our own identity and calling those to book who are doing wrong, and own up to our mistakes as well. We are by no means blemish free as an African continent. And yeah, I guess on that note, so I think we must definitely do more shows along this theme and have people from other countries talking about their issues, because like Jose said, we have to come up with the solutions. It's no use us just complaining about things and exposing things that have happened in our past. We have to move past that now, and we have to find solutions to move forward as African people. And I don't think we've ever been as connected now, thanks to the internet, and really bridging the gap between countries. And it's a very small thing that's starting. It's like I've always said, our dictator presidents are not going to unite us. They have things like power and money and minerals. It's the everyday people like us who are going to unite our continent. I've always believed that. We're not bribable, we're not corruptible, we don't care about huge amounts of wealth. We all want the same thing at the end of the day. Food on the table, jobs, good medical care for when we or our elderly get sick, and just peace and no war, and just being able to get on and interact with other countries globally and trade our minerals on our own terms and just be peaceful. And I know that that's a very rose-tinted glasses view of how we want things to be, but I do believe that we can work towards that, not in our lifetime, not in our children's or our grandchildren's lifetimes, but we are those who are starting off some kind of a movement, some kind of a feeling. There's an awakening across Africa, definitely. And it's up to us to lay the good, strong foundations, because as a godless person, I firmly believe that that is our legacy, that is our eternal life, is what we leave behind after we're gone, that can make a difference and that others can build on that going forward. So that to me is eternal life. And that's what we need to do now, and so that we can change Africa's future to be much better than Africa's past, and to be the catalysts for those changes, to start those changes on our continent. I think it's very important to put us all as writers as well, is to write what happened, that our history is never lost again, that our truth is never lost again, that we never are voiceless again, because what we write today will be read many years down the line, and people can learn from that we learned from our mistakes that we made, that people can learn from as well. So thank you very much. It's been great to speak to both of you tonight. And we'll see everybody back here next week. Load shedding across the continent. The thing that's so funny trying to balance a show when you've got Uganda's got no electricity, then Uganda's got Nigeria's got electricity, then South Africa's off for 2 hours. So it's very interesting to see that. But thanks, Kato. Thanks, Jose. And to everyone for watching.
Thank you so much, Joseph.
Third of our continent represented on our channel, which is wonderful. We want all countries, every single African country represented, so that we can start talking, sitting down together at Table Africa and talking about our common issues and finding peaceful solutions for a way forward for Africa and for our African people. Thanks, Kato. Thank you to Dennis and Brian behind the scenes in Uganda. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Yeah. Bye-bye.